Hello and welcome to the Mal and Johnny Show. A very special guest this week. We've been trying to get hold of him for ages. Finally, we've pinned him down. The one, the only, Bryn Yemm. Now then, Bryn, it's lovely to see you. You go back a long way with Johnny Tudor. Do you remember the first time you two boys met?
Yes, I think it was. I think we were in the Welsh Guards at the Battle of York's Drift.
Men of Hanukkah to glory. Hey, they got a lovely bass section.
Back in the set. It was back in
Johnny's
the 70s.
the best.
Yeah.
We do go back a long way, and our mutual friend, rest in peace, Wyn Calvin, and Variety Club. I think I first met you with him or somewhere, and he was a great guy, Wyn, and
because he was the chairman of the Welsh.
And many years with him.
Yeah,
and he taught me a lot, John. You were talking about somebody the other day that taught you a lot. Well, Wyn taught me a lot about stagecraft a long time ago. You know, the things that you don't hear today.
Yeah.
Like what then? What stuck with you, Bryn? What stuck with you that Wyn would have shared with Bryn?
Never turn your back on your audience when you walk off the stage.
That's quite right.
And he would do his whatever, blah blah, and he would be walking backwards, but always with his face to the audience.
Yeah, my old man used to tell me that.
And you know what? When I had the 3 ships in the Med, and I had the 3 shows on 3 ships, the 3 sets of dancers, and all the other acts, and the times I said that. Don't turn your back on the audience. I thought every time I was thinking Wyn Calvin.
Wyn Calvin.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
My old man used to say exactly the same thing. Never turn your back on the audience. Never.
Yeah, well, and particularly when you're doing the clubs, because you never know what they're going to throw at you. Self-defense. Now then, Bryn, where did it start with you? Was it in the Salvation Army? Because I've got this thing in my head: Salvation Army, Bryn Yemm.
Oh, sure. Well, I was raised in the army. Well, I was adopted. Most people know that now, but I was adopted when I was 9 months old, and I was born in Bryn Mawr.
Right.
So that makes me Welsh, doesn't it?
It does.
That makes you Welsh,
Definitely.
Yeah, Bryn Mawr.
Bryn Mawr.
Bryn from Bryn Mawr.
Yes, I'm a Maori, a Bryn Maori.
So where were your adopted parents from then, with a name like Yemm?
Well, my father was from Beaufort, and my mother was born and bred in Bryn Mawr. And the Salvation Army, they were a Salvation Army family, 10 of them, and they were all in uniform. They adopted me. And my mother was standing on the bus stop in Market Square, and she was taking me to the children's home in Cardiff. And she was in turmoil, as one can imagine. And there was people there waiting for the same bus. And she got talking to these people and said, I'm taking him to Cardiff because I can't cope or whatever. You can imagine it was a nightmare for her. And this woman stepped forward and said, well, don't do that. Take him to my sister, Mary, in Abergavenny, and she'll have him. Now, don't forget, she was standing and I was on Bryn Mawr Square at that moment. So this woman said, look, my biological mother, looked a bit surprised, and this woman said, look, have you got the money for the bus? Because I'll give it to you, but take him to Abergavenny, don't take him to Cardiff. And that's what she did. And within an hour, she was knocking on the door of 66 Tudor Street, Abergavenny, 66. That's a very significant word, the number 66. And this little Welsh woman opened the door, and she was, as I said, from Bryn Mawr, from a Salvation Army family. And my father had gone to work at 8 o'clock that morning, and when he came home at 5, there was a cuckoo in the nest. I was there.
Isn't that amazing?
But you were lucky that they found you, I think, a good, loving family.
Both Mal and I would like to correct you there, John. We weren't lucky, we were blessed.
That's right. As Wyn would say, we were blessed.
We were blessed.
True.
So, in the family, obviously, there's lots of music in the Salvation Army. Did you perform sort of in the Citadel, or did you learn to play a brass instrument?
I tried to play the cornet, but I gave it up. I didn't practice, so I gave that up. But the singing was all part, Not that I was never like this. in the spotlight, but I used to be there. I had to go to Sunday school, whether I liked it or not, every Sunday morning and afternoon. You know, with a little persuasion from my mother. She'd grab my hand and say, get down there. And it was fantastic. And I was there till I was about 15 or 16. And it's wonderful because the people I grew up with there, I still see them here in Abergavenny. That's another reason why both Anne and I have never moved. We could have many times, but we always kept our home in Abergavenny because that's where our heart is. And also our parents are all buried in the beautiful cemetery over on the river in Abergavenny. And so we don't want to be away from that.
That's right.
So how did you become a professional entertainer? What was the routine? Was it the clubs? Was it?
The curse was that I must mention that my adopted mother died when I was 13. She was only 40.
Oh, wow.
And she died from cancer. And I'll never forget it. And when my Uncle Jim, who was the mayor of Abergavenny, Jim Hill, he called me in at the park in Abergavenny and said, you've got to go home straight away. And I jumped on my bike, and I knew because my mother had been ill for a long time. My father, her sisters said to my father, Ivor from Bryn from Beaufort, look, I'll take him. You got your work, and he's, you're a young boy, and I'll take it. My father said, he stays where he is. Stays where he is. And I did, of course. And my father wouldn't part with me. Don't forget, I was his adopted son.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Hey, Bryn, I think we first met, apart from Wyn Calvin, when you were the host at the nightclubs in the 70s. Because you were the host at about 3 or 4 big nightclubs, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I worked with George Sava, and every week I was at the Stardust or the Hellmain and all that. And you never came.
No.
Why didn't you ever work that club now?
I don't know. It's I was only about 10.
It was a great club. All the big stars were there.
The big stars.
Hey, Mal, you never had to say that.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's not true. It's not true. I was at least 12.
Let me tell you something about Bryn, right, Mal?
Yeah.
He used to flog his records. He's the best salesman I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So you'll have, say, Neil Sedaka on the stage, and you go, ladies and gentlemen, Neil Sedaka's coming in next, and his album is so, but my album is a bit cheap. And this is my album.
He wasn't as blatant as that.
Did you start off as a singer then, or as the entertainer who introduced it? How did that sort of happen? Where did you start?
What happened then before I went there, I had my own bands. I mean, Bryn Yemm and the Perfectioners, Bryn Yemm and the Shift. We used to follow Tommy Scott, the Senators, into Memo and other venues around South Wales. Yeah. And in them days, Mal, there was a wealth of amazing bands, wasn't there, John?
Oh, yeah, great acts as well,
Then my wife's teacher, Mr. John Hickey from Merthyr, from Dowlas, one night, Anne and I were on the back row of the movies, like the song says, and the girl came and shone her torch on me and said, Mr. Hickey wants you to go out now. He said, don't worry, he'll pay you your money. It's only about a shilling. So he said, come on out. So what he did was he was the musical director of the Abergavenny Pantomime Company, and he wanted me to go to audition for it. Ah. Now, up to that moment, I was just singing with the guitar and the boys in the band.
Right.
Yeah. Some great talents, and some of them are still working now, really good. And so I went and did it, and I did my first panto, Puss in Boots, and, I was blessed. I was the star of the show, and I got all the... One thing I've always done, Mal, right from the word go, I've kept every press cutting that you've ever had.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, you haven't changed a bit. Look at that.
Haven't I just?
Yeah, that's
I'm
brilliant.
2 days older than grass. But anyway, I still work. I can still go out and do an hour and a half. I'm a great lounge performer because that's what I was taught from Wyn and Kenny Earl. Taught me how to work a room.
Yeah.
You have to be able to work a room, right, John?
You do.
You got to work a room.
But you know that...
I loved it, and I learned, and I studied
I got to say this, Bryn. You were the best compere I've ever seen. You could whip up the audience ready for the star, so-called, to come on after you. You had the knack to do.
So, Bryn, you compared with, as we know, we've mentioned Neil Sedaka. Tell us about some of those great acts that you would have brought into the Welsh, Savas and all those clubs. Yeah. Who would stick out in your mind?
I've got a couple of great memories. Yeah, I got a great photograph here with me and the Platters. Wow. And the one on the left in the photograph was in the film Rock Around the Clock. He's an original. Yeah. And it's a great photograph. It's been around many times. But then I worked, listen to this, Mal. I did a week with Frankie Lane.
Wow. I met Frankie Lane in Manchester. That's so strange. He was in BBC Manchester, and he's a big, tall guy, and he said to me, I said, where are you working? He said, I'm going to Ersk. That's what he said. I'm going to
I love Ersk. It. But Mal, the great thing when you work with him, you had to work with him to realize how many hit songs he had, everything he sang. Yeah. And we are talking of 10, 20, they were all fabulous worldwide hits.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one of Gene Pitney, and the other one, and this is a big one, because I'm absolutely hyper about show business. Yeah. If you want to keep me happy, talk to me about show. That's why I get on with Johnny so well. I love his stories. But I did the night out for London management in Birmingham, the theatre restaurant. As you drive in, 1,500 seater, and who was topping the bill? But Alan Jones.
Oh, what's
the Donkey
father?
Serenade. Mal, do you hear that?
Jack Jones'
dad, wasn't it?
Jack Jones. I've worked with Jack Jones a few times and didn't like him. Nobody really liked him. He's not a nice guy. But he knew his stuff. He was brilliant. But his father was something else. And I'll tell you, one of the great memories of my life is that, so on the Monday night, we've opened in Birmingham, and me being me, after the show, see if I could get a drink, and I'm going to his dressing room, and from that then something happened. So don't forget, you're talking about this guy. On his show at the Night Out Birmingham, at one point he sang the Donkey Serenade, and he was on the screen behind him, right? Yeah. From the movie. So this is what you're talking about. Gold, this guy.
Oh, huge star.
And then I got him talking about the business. Yeah. And then he blew my mind because he knew he was going out with Ruby Keeler. And Ruby Keeler was married to Al Jolson.
Al Jolson. She was a good dancer.
I spent the whole week after the show sitting with him. And of course, I got that. I tapped into him and made him open up. And the more stories he was telling was just awesome. Yeah. But I worked with everybody who was anybody. Cannon and Ball, they're on record as saying, but Usk was a great club if you could follow the compass, which was nice. I mean, look, I didn't have anything special going, but what I had, Mal, was another true blessing. I was born with a personality. Yeah. Yes. And that's what the business is about.
It is.
You got to have charisma, personality. And that's see, what happened, when we had 1,000 people in the club every night, thanks to George, I got my first album, Hello, I'm Bryn Yemm. Cheer, that's right, I got everything here. And I did it. Kenny Earl was managing me, but I got it. I got the deal because I went in, I wrote a song, and I went into the Newport Woolworths and took $5,000 on a Saturday morning. I went to Belfast and took 10 grand in 6 days.
Now, when you say you took it, so you used to go into Woolworths with a PA system, and you used to sing. You used to just and sell the records.
Not all the time, but no. Of course I did. I'd work the pitch, and that's the point I was going to make to you about personality. See, is that I could work. So the bigger the crowd, the better I'd be. I'd be. I love people. Yes, I love people. That's the secret, really.
But you know what George Byrn used to say? Bryn could sell Sandow Arabs because he's got more front than Woolworths.
Hey, Mel, did you see what Harry Seacombe wrote about me?
What did he say? Come on, let's go. Let's find it. Take your headphones. He's going to take his headphones off. He's going to find the quote from Harry Seacombe. Harry Seacombe just coming up here now.
Like this.
Yeah. Here we go.
Well,
amongst all the memories.
I've got the album there, but Harry, I worked with Harry a couple of times, but the one week I was with him, I had just done an album, The Gateway to Song, with the Morrison Orpheus. And I mentioned it to him in a nice way, you know.
Yes.
You know, was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
And so about 3 days later, he said to me, on the evening we were working, he said, "Hey, Bryn," he said, "you doing that album?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Would you like me to do the sleeve notes?" Wasn't that nice of him?
It's fantastic.
And he did, he wrote on there, he said, "Having worked with Bryn, I can only tell you that this guy could get the Tory party to sing the Red Flag."
Lovely.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, remember the show I did with you?
Well, which one was that?
We did it for the Eisteddfod.
Oh, that's right. You did arrange it for the Eisteddfod. That's right.
Wow.
That was what? How many years ago was that?
There we are.
2016.
There's the
there
young
you
Johnny Shooter there.
Cool. He hasn't changed. Again, he hasn't changed a bit either.
The hair's a different colour. You got to go with it. You got to go with the silver foxes.
The only thing I didn't like about that, Mal,
Yeah.
is after that night when he came to Abergavenny Town Hall to help me raise about $3,000 for the Eisteddfod, which was being held in Abergavenny.
Yeah.
Right? All the people I spoke about was the bloody suit he had on.
Well, I used to go to Robbie Stanford.
He made the rest of us look like paupers. He got a most amazing dress suit that he works in, really.
Yeah.
And I said that in jest, but in many cases true.
It's true.
Because 3 or 4 of my mates, including some from Rockville Studio, said, "Yeah, didn't you see that suit he had on?" I said, "Oh God."
You know what Ted Rogers used to say? We used to go to Robbie Stanford, in London, for our suits. And because he used to make for people like Tom Jones, Engel, everybody, see.
Yeah.
So Ted used to say, as long as you got a Robbie suit on and the band's in tune, you can't fail.
That's true. Now, do you know, I mentioned the Beehive in Watford, Mal.
Yeah.
What a treat for me. The Watford bypass is only about 6 miles from Elstree Studios.
Right.
Then I had another blessing. One night, there was lots of tables. This place would be packed. And tables of 10, tables of 8. We had a 5-piece band. I used to do a lot of work. And who was there one night was this guy, Dr. O'Sullivan. And he led the show. And I used to work the audience all the time. I'd get groups of women up, and it was great, all really good. And that held me in good stead, because he turned out to be the doctor of ATV Elstree Studios,
Oh, wow.
Dr. O'Sullivan. And guess who was down there all that time I was there? Guess who was working at Elstree? This is Tom Jones.
Oh, Tom was there, was he? All right.
I used to go down in the day because I knew the doctor. Once he took me in 2 or 3 times, because we'd have a cheap meal there in their canteen for $1.50, and I was on the road.
Yeah.
I was on the road, so you had to do that. And I went down there, and I used to go on the set quietly and sit up in the seats in the dark and watch everybody. I saw Bruce do his work there, Norman Wisdom do routines. I watched Tom and Shirley Bassey one day. The biggest, the best. I shook hands and spoke to Orson Welles down there.
Oh, goodness me.
And a whole load of them. Because they were all guesting. And then, of course, they'd all be in the canteen. They'd all be in the restaurant. Tom would be there with Engelbert. And I'd speak with them and sit with them. Tom used to have a driver called Chris Ellis from Pontypridd.
Right.
Used to drive the Rose. And Tom was in his prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So didn't Tom and Engelbert, didn't they both do the Hellmain?
Yes. And the deal was, Mal, that you could have Tom, but you had to book Engelbert. Gordon Mills, that was the deal.
Yeah.
You can have Tom, but you got to have, I want a week on...
Wow.
Engelbert.
Isn't that amazing? Guys,
and of course, we had Cliff Richard, because George Savin knew everybody in the business. He put lots of money. And Danny LaRue. One night I went in there, we had Danny LaRue's show for the week.
Wow.
Thinking of Johnny, tap, tap, tap. He had a dance master there who gave me a pair of his old shoes, and they were brilliant taps. And Yeah, I know, but I treasure them. Yeah. So I went in there. We opened on the Sunday, and he had that guy Wayne on the piano. Remember?
Yeah, Wayne King.
Yeah.
That's
so
that was
the next night I
boyfriend.
went in, and Sava said, "Bryn, I need to speak to you. Coming in." So I went in the office. He said, "You can't work." I said, "What do you mean I can't work?" He said, "You're off for the week. Danny doesn't want you to work because you made it too difficult for Wayne." Yeah, true story. I mean, I
can believe it. I can believe it.
And he said, and that was. But I had a lovely time with Danny, and he wrote some nice things for me, and I used to see him quite often. Yeah, I mean, it's marvelous. Actually, you guys, I'm glad I came here today to reminisce. It's just unbelievable, isn't it, John?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, the thing is, as you say, the business, we were in it when it was the business. And you had all those fabulous clubs, all the big stars you'd work with. It was fantastic.
And here's a good saying, Mal.
Yeah.
It's show business, and many times the business ruined the show.
Yeah.
But
as long as they don't say you got no business in show business, you're okay.
We're nearly out of we're nearly out of time. We're nearly out of time, boys. It's been. Do you know
what do you think, Mal? What do you think? Was it worth it?
I think it was worth it. Do you know what I love about it? I'm not gonna estimate your ages, boys. I'm not going to do that. But I just love the fact that at this stage in your life, you're just as enthusiastic about what you do as you probably were when you were kids. You know, it's an addiction.
I'm actually doing a gig in 2 weeks' time. I'm going to get the tap shoes out. I'm going to go back on the road.
All right, you are. Yeah.
Well, look, it's been absolutely wonderful having Bryn Yemm on the Mal and Johnny podcast. I just love your enthusiasm, as I say.
Thanks a lot, both of you.
So it's goodbye. It's goodbye from Bryn.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye.